In the heart of Canada's vast wilderness, 5 names became threads in a chilling web of mystery. Photographer Claire Hensley, pilot Greg Fallon, siblings Paul and Emily Reed, real estate agent Megan Lowe, and journalist Rachel Pierce. Each vanished under impossible circumstances. One into the misty peaks of Banff, another into the frozen skies of Ontario, and one while chasing a house that never existed. Their stories seemed unconnected until Rachel uncovered the truth. Every disappearance led back to the same impossible place. A cabin reflected on still water, always seen in fog, never found again. Banff National Park in the summer of 1998 was the kind of place where beauty seemed untouchable. The snow still clung to the mountaintops, rivers shimmered under the sun, and tourists filled the trails with laughter and camera flashes. Among them was Claire Hensley, a 27-year-old wildlife photographer whose name was beginning to appear in nature magazines across Canada. She was known for hiking deeper than most, waiting for hours in the biting cold to capture the perfect shot of a bear crossing a stream or an eagle soaring through mist. Those who knew her said she never feared isolation. She found peace in it. On July 3rd, she left her small rented cabin near Bow Valley at dawn. She told a neighbor she was heading toward Bow Lake to catch the sunrise over the ridges. It was a calm, windless morning when she drove off in her old green Subaru, camera gear neatly packed, coffee thermos beside her. She never came back. When she didn't return that evening, her disappearance didn't raise alarms right away. It wasn't unusual for Claire to stay overnight in the backcountry if the light was good. But after 2 days with no contact, park rangers began searching. They found her car parked at the trailhead, locked, keys missing. Tire tracks suggested she'd arrived early and alone. From there, her trail faded into silence. The search lasted 9 days. Teams combed through dense forest, followed riverbeds, and scanned cliffs with helicopters. Dogs caught faint scents that led nowhere. Then, on the 10th day, a hiker stumbled upon something strange near a waterfall 6 miles from where her car had been found. Wedged between 2 rocks was Claire's camera, its strap tangled with moss, lens cracked. Investigators developed the film hoping for clues. Most of the photos were breathtaking landscapes. Elk grazing in the valley, fog rolling over peaks, sunlight glinting off ice. But the final image chilled them all. It showed Claire standing near the edge of a waterfall, her reflection faintly visible in the water. Behind her, through the mist, was a blurred human figure. The person's face was indistinct but clearly turned toward her, as if aware of being photographed. Investigators initially thought it might be another hiker, but no one matching the shape or clothing description had been reported in the area. There were no footprints near the spot, no sign of struggle, and no evidence of anyone else being there. Experts analyzed the image for tampering and found none. The film was genuine. Some speculated the figure was a trick of light, a shadow distorted by mist. Others weren't so sure. One park ranger who viewed the photo later claimed he recognized the same shape during a dawn patrol near the same waterfall weeks later. A tall silhouette, standing still in the fog, watching from the rocks, vanishing when he looked back. Claire's disappearance became one of Banff's enduring mysteries. No body, no belongings, no clear explanation. Each year, tourists still visit Bow Lake to capture its beauty, unaware of the story beneath its calm surface. And when the fog settles thick over the falls, locals say it's best not to look too long into it, because sometimes the mist looks back. In the vast northern wilderness of Ontario, winter can feel endless. The forests stretch for miles without a sound, and lakes freeze so completely that the world feels paused in time. In January 2004, that stillness was broken by a mystery that would leave investigators searching the skies for answers. A small float plane departed from Thunder Bay, heading north toward a remote fishing lodge near Ottawa-Piscat. On board were 3 people: pilot Greg Fallon, an experienced bush flyer, his business partner Paul Reed, and Paul's sister Emily, who had joined them for what was supposed to be a weekend retreat. The flight was routine, the weather calm, and Greg was known for his precision. He filed his flight plan, checked his equipment, and lifted off just before sunrise. The plane never arrived. When the lodge failed to hear from them, authorities launched a full-scale search. For days, helicopters, snowmobiles, and volunteer teams covered hundreds of miles of frozen terrain. The rescue mission found no wreckage, no debris, not even an oil slick on the ice. It was as if the plane had simply vanished from the air. Investigators were baffled until air traffic control replayed the final minutes of Greg's radio transmission. At 8:14 a.m., his voice came through the static. Calm at first, then uneasy. "Everything looks fine," he said, followed by a few seconds of silence. Then his tone shifted. Low, uncertain. "We're not alone up here." Those were his last recorded words before the transmission cut off. The signal was never restored, and radar showed no sign of another aircraft nearby. Experts called it a technical glitch, maybe a reflection from a storm cell, but meteorological records showed clear skies. The strange part was the strength of the transmission itself. It was picked up by a second tower nearly 200 kilometers away, something that shouldn't have been possible for such a small plane. Weeks passed. Families grieved, rescue teams disbanded, and the frozen expanse of Ontario swallowed another unsolved case. But 6 months later, a fisherman reported something odd near the Albany River. Tangled in reeds was an old portable radio, half buried in mud. When investigators examined it, they realized it was tuned to the same emergency frequency the missing plane had used. Out of curiosity, they played the last recording stored inside the device. What they heard unsettled even the most hardened officers. There was static, followed by faint breathing, slow and steady. It wasn't Greg's voice. It wasn't any of the passengers. The breathing continued for nearly 30 seconds, then stopped abruptly, replaced by what sounded like the soft hum of an engine running in the distance. Forensic experts tried to explain it away as interference or environmental distortion, but the rhythm of the breathing was too distinct, too human. Today, the flight remains officially missing. Locals who live near the river say that on certain clear nights, the faint sound of an engine can still be heard echoing across the frozen water. Pilots flying over that region sometimes report flickering lights below them, lights that vanish the moment they're approached. What really happened in the sky that day remains unknown, but one thing is certain. The northern silence still listens, waiting for another voice to break through the static. In 2010, the small Saskatchewan town of Meadowbridge sat quiet between miles of prairie and endless sky. It was the kind of place where every passing truck was recognized, and gossip moved faster than the wind. That's why it startled everyone when a local real estate agent, Megan Lowe, received a call from a woman she didn't know, asking for help to sell her family home. The woman's voice was calm, polite, and oddly formal. She said her name was Margaret Lewis and gave an address at the edge of town, a road Megan had driven dozens of times. The house, Margaret explained, had been in her family for generations, but they were finally ready to let it go. She asked that the listing go live within the week. When Megan arrived at the address the next morning, she was confused. There was nothing there, just open field, flat and golden, stretching toward the horizon. No foundation, no ruins, not even a mailbox. Thinking she had made a mistake, she double-checked the address. It was correct. The coordinates matched. She called the number Margaret had given her, but it went straight to voicemail. Later that afternoon, Megan returned with a colleague, and together they searched the surrounding area, certain the house must have been hidden behind a hill or down a dirt lane. But the land remained empty. Puzzled, she went to the town records office. There, things grew stranger. The property existed, at least on paper. Deeds, ownership transfers, tax receipts, all perfectly legitimate. The Lewis family name appeared on every document, stretching back decades. The last record showed a payment of property tax made just 2 months earlier, confirmed by bank transaction. Yet the land had no visible structure. When Megan mentioned this to the clerk, the woman frowned and said quietly, "That place again?" She refused to elaborate and suggested Megan drop the listing. Curiosity overpowered caution. Megan drove out again at sunset, determined to find something, anything. As the sky turned orange, she thought she saw something faint in the distance. The outline of a roof, the shimmer of light on windows. She blinked and it was gone. That night, She couldn't shake the image. She listed the property anyway, describing it as an unlisted rural residence pending inspection. Within days, she received another call, this time from a man claiming to be Margaret's brother. He thanked her for helping and promised to send updated photos soon. None ever arrived. A month later, the story took a final unsettling turn. A plain envelope appeared at Megan's office, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. It showed a two-story farmhouse under moonlight, its porch light glowing warmly, curtains drawn. The number on the mailbox matched the address of the missing property. But the strangest detail wasn't the house, it was the date printed on the back. The photo had been developed in 1974. Police investigated, but the film type was authentic. The paper aged. When they visited the coordinates once more, the prairie remained bare. Locals began whispering about the house that comes and goes, a ghost home trapped between past and present. Some nights, drivers claimed to see its windows flicker in the distance before vanishing into the dark, leaving behind only silence and dry grass swaying where a house should have stood. The winter of 2017 along the shores of Lake Superior was brutal. Temperatures plunged far below freezing, and the lake, already known for its unpredictable moods, froze into an endless field of ice. Snowmobiles buzzed across its surface every weekend as locals took advantage of the rare solid freeze. One February afternoon, a man named Kevin Moore was out checking his fishing lines when something pale caught his eye near the edge of a drift. At first, he thought it was a frozen branch. Then the wind shifted, and he saw fingers. Police were called immediately. What they uncovered shocked everyone. Embedded in the ice was the body of a man, perfectly preserved, his face calm and eyes closed as though he were asleep. He was wearing clothes that looked decades old, thick wool trousers, a leather jacket, and heavy boots with brass eyelets, the kind rarely seen anymore. There were no signs of trauma or struggle and no identification on him at all. The coroner estimated he had been dead for years, maybe decades, but his body showed no decay, no frostbite, and strangely, his watch was still ticking faintly when they retrieved it. The investigation began with the usual steps. Fingerprints were taken, photos circulated, and missing persons records from across Canada were checked. Nothing matched. When they finally ran his blood for typing, the results came back inconclusive. The man's blood didn't match any known category in medical records. It wasn't a simple testing error. They ran it 5 times. The structure was different. Still human, but not fully explainable. The lab classified it as non-standard. 2 weeks later, divers returned to the site where the body had been found to look for more evidence. Beneath the ice, about 20 meters down, they discovered something that made little sense. A rusted snowmobile, still upright as if it had been parked there deliberately. The odd part was the condition of the engine. Despite sitting underwater for what should have been decades, the internal components showed no corrosion. Even stranger, when one of the divers touched the ignition switch, they swore they felt warmth radiating from it. As news spread, locals began to speculate wildly. Some believed the man had fallen through the ice years ago, and somehow become trapped in a pocket of freezing water that preserved him perfectly. Others whispered stories about time anomalies, about ships and people that disappeared on the Great Lakes, only to return decades later unchanged. An elderly fisherman even claimed he'd seen a man fitting the same description walking along the shoreline in 1957, carrying a helmet that looked identical to the one found beside the body. His account was dismissed until a driver's license surfaced nearby, trapped under a sheet of melting ice. It was issued in 1957 to a man named Richard Hale, missing since that same year. DNA testing, however, confirmed the body wasn't Richard. 2 men, one dead, one missing, somehow bound together by a lake that never gives up its secrets. When spring came and the ice finally melted, investigators returned to retrieve the snowmobile. It was gone. Only the imprint of its treads remained in the sediment, leading toward deeper water. To this day, fishermen say they sometimes see light glinting beneath the lake's surface, like a headlamp turning slowly through the dark, and the ice hums faintly, as if an engine is still running far below. Months after the Lake Superior case was closed without answers, a freelance journalist named Rachel Pierce began piecing together what seemed like unrelated disappearances across Canada. She was drawn first to the story of Claire Hensley, the missing photographer from Banff. Rachel had come across Claire's old photo essay in a forgotten nature magazine from 1997, titled The House Beyond the Fog. One image stood out, a small cabin by a lake, half shrouded in mist. The water was still, the reflection sharp enough to look like glass. But when Rachel compared the landscape to maps of Banff and the surrounding parks, no lake of that shape existed. That was the beginning of the pattern. As Rachel dug deeper, she found a mention of Claire's name in flight records from 2004, the same year the float plane vanished over northern Ontario. Claire had chartered flights with a company co-owned by Greg Fallon, the missing pilot. Her last documented trip with him had been to a location listed only as Private Lake North. There was no GPS data, no coordinates, just a hand-drawn circle on an old topographic map. It overlapped eerily with the area where the fishermen later found the mysterious radio still tuned to the missing plane's frequency. The connection was small but undeniable. The further she looked, the stranger the links became. The house from the Saskatchewan incident matched almost perfectly with the cabin in Claire's photo essay. Same slanted roof, same porch light hanging slightly off-center. The 1974 photograph sent to the real estate agent appeared to show the same building from a different angle. Rachel compared the window patterns, the railing, even the number on the mailbox. It was identical, yet records showed no house had ever been built there. The structure existed only in images and memories that never lined up with physical evidence. While cross-referencing property archives, Rachel found the Lewis family mentioned in a newspaper clipping from 1958, reporting the disappearance of a man named Richard Hale, the same name on the 1957 driver's license recovered from Lake Superior. The article mentioned Hale had been a close friend of Thomas Lewis, a builder who vanished while constructing a lakeside cabin near the Manitoba-Ontario border. The timeline spanned decades, but every clue pointed to the same inexplicable destination, a cabin near water that never appeared on any map. Rachel's notes became increasingly erratic in her final weeks of research. She wrote about a dream she couldn't shake, standing on a frozen lake, staring at a reflection of a house beneath the ice, its windows glowing faintly in the dark. She described hearing a faint hum, like an engine turning over underwater, and the soft click of a camera shutter somewhere behind her. She sent these notes to a colleague saying she planned to visit the Banff area one last time to follow where the lines meet. She was never seen again. Weeks later, police found her apartment undisturbed, laptop open on the desk. On top of her files lay a single printed photograph, grainy and color faded. It showed Claire Hensley standing beside a calm lake, smiling faintly, her camera slung around her neck. In the background, half hidden by fog, was the same house, porch light burning, door slightly open, and a dark figure standing in the doorway. No one has been able to trace where or when the photo was taken. To this day, it remains the final piece in a puzzle that ties together four mysteries, and a fifth that no one can yet explain. Some mysteries fade with time, but these never did. From Claire's haunting photograph to Rachel's final discovery, every clue leads back to the same impossible truth, a place that exists only between reality and memory. These stories remind us that not all disappearances have answers, and some questions are meant to linger in the silence. If these unsolved Canadian mysteries left you wondering what lies beyond the fog, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. More chilling true crime stories await, where every secret hides in plain sight.